On December 26, 2023, at approximately 3:30 a.m., a fire was reported at the Versailles Gardens apartment complex in Tamarack, Florida. Emergency responders located a woman inside apartment 203. She was later identified as 29-year-old Keera Brabham. She was transported to the hospital, where she was pronounced dead.
Firefighters responding to an apartment fire making a deadly discovery inside. This morning, we're hearing from the victim's family. 7's Danielle Garcia is live in Tamarack with what they're saying and how they're remembering this victim. Danielle.
Lorena, good morning. And also this morning, we've seen fire officials returning here to this neighborhood and also detectives just adding to the mystery. This family believes that something very sinister happened here, and the death of this young mother is suspicious.
Initial reports listed the fire as suspicious. Investigators noted irregular burn patterns and statements from neighbors describing loud noises and arguing prior to the incident. No official cause of the fire was released at the time. The case was classified as an active investigation. Brabham was a licensed esthetician and operated a personal beauty business. She was known locally and maintained a residence at the apartment complex where the incident occurred. In the weeks leading up to the fire, she had recently ended a relationship. No restraining orders or official complaints had been filed. Over the next several weeks, detectives reviewed physical evidence, digital data, and surveillance footage. Information obtained during the investigation led authorities to focus on an individual with close personal ties to the victim. Additional forensic and location data supported this direction. On February 15, 2024, a suspect was taken into custody and charged in connection with the case.
Also only on 6, a South Florida family says they are one step closer to getting justice.
Today, police arrested the ex-boyfriend of a 29-year-old who died after her Tamarack apartment was set on fire, and they charged him with her murder.
And NBC6's Kim Nguyen has more from the victim's sister, who says the family is breathing a huge sigh of relief. Kim?
Yeah, that's right. And right now, the suspect is being held here at Broward County Jail. The victim's sister says they suspected from day one that he was the one who killed her, and says that they are glad he's off the streets.
We got the justice that we deserved. We're grateful.
Stephanie Gladman says today she got the phone call she's been waiting for months.
We got a call this morning stating that he's been arrested.
The he she's referring to is 31-year-old Laren Emily, her sister's ex-boyfriend.
We never thought this man would take my sister's life, and he did.
Emily is charged with arson and premeditated murder for the death of 29-year-old Keera Brabham.
This incident raised multiple procedural and safety concerns. The sequence of events prior to the fire, the timeline of the investigation, and the decisions made in the victim's final days remain under review. What led to the events of December 26? Were there identifiable warning signs? How did this case move from a fire investigation to a homicide charge? And what factors allowed it to escalate undetected? This report examines the timeline, evidence, and unresolved questions in the case involving Keera Brabham. The details begin with the fire, but they do not end there. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Keera Brabham was 29 years old. She was a licensed esthetician and a respected entrepreneur in the South Florida beauty industry. Based in Tamarack, Florida, she ran a successful skincare and beauty business, known for attracting a wide client base due to her professionalism, creativity, and work ethic. Colleagues and clients describe her as highly disciplined, organized, and always focused on growth. She built her brand through hard work, networking, and providing consistent services. Despite her public presence on social media and business platforms, Keera maintained a quiet, private personal life. She rarely spoke about her home life or relationship status publicly. She was a single mother raising a daughter. Those close to her described her as protective, independent, and always determined to provide a better future for her child. She lived in Versailles Gardens, a residential apartment complex located at 7900 South Colony Circle in Tamarack. Outside of work, she kept a small circle of trusted friends. Her social media profiles gave glimpses into her professional success, but offered little about her personal circumstances. To many, Keera appeared to be thriving in all aspects of life. How much do we really know about the private lives of successful individuals? Can professional success hide personal danger? Keera met Laren Lenworth Emile, age 31, through mutual circles sometime in early to mid-2023. Emile presented himself as confident, charming, and attentive. Their relationship progressed quickly, and from the outside, it appeared to be a healthy connection. However, friends and relatives would later reveal that red flags began to appear within a few months. Emile was reportedly possessive. According to people close to Keera, he often questioned her whereabouts, made unexpected appearances at her workplace, and monitored her online activity. His behavior shifted from affectionate to controlling. Several arguments were reported between the two, although no police reports or restraining orders were filed. In late 2023, Keera ended the relationship. Family members reported that she had broken things off roughly 3 to 4 weeks before her death. During that period, Keera was said to be reestablishing boundaries, avoiding calls, and asking close friends not to disclose her movements. Some suspected she was being followed or stalked, but again, no formal reports were made to authorities. The separation did not appear to sit well with Emile. Individuals in Keera's inner circle described subtle signs of continued contact, frequent texts, uninvited visits, and behavior suggesting emotional manipulation. He allegedly threatened to harm himself and made veiled references to her not being able to leave him. How often do early warning signs in a toxic relationship go unreported? Why do victims sometimes stay silent even when danger escalates? In the early morning hours of December 26, 2023, at approximately 3:30 a.m., a fire alarm went off at the Versailles Gardens apartment complex. Several residents were awakened by the sound, followed by the smell of smoke. Emergency services were contacted immediately. When fire rescue teams arrived on the scene, they identified the fire source as Unit 203, Keera Brabham's apartment. Smoke was pouring out the windows, and the interior was heavily engulfed in flames. Upon entering the unit, firefighters located Keera's unresponsive body. She was quickly transported to a nearby hospital, where she was later pronounced dead.
I was terrified. The banging, the screaming, the call 911.
A neighbor describes the terror after a woman's apartment goes up in flames. She never made it out.
Loved ones had just enough time and had just been with her on Christmas yesterday.
And tonight they have a lot of questions about what happened inside her apartment. CBS News Miami's Ted Scouten joins us live now in Tamarack with the latest. Ted.
Yeah, Naja and Elliot, that family is heartbroken tonight. It was around 3:30 in the morning when they got the call that a fire had broken out right back there inside apartment number 203. That's here in Tamarack. Tonight we're hearing from one of the neighbors who tells us what he heard just before the flames.
The fire caused substantial damage to the apartment, but the exact origin of the blaze remained unclear in the early stages. Initial assessments by the fire department marked the fire as suspicious. Investigators noted the intensity and burn pattern of the flames did not align with common electrical or accidental causes. Residents in neighboring units later reported hearing a loud argument coming from Keera's apartment hours before the fire began. Some believe there may have been someone else in the apartment with her that night. However, it remains unclear if anyone recorded the argument or called authorities before the fire broke out. BSO Broward Sheriff's Office launched a full investigation. Arson specialists, forensic teams, and homicide detectives worked together to determine the sequence of events. Investigators began canvassing the area, reviewing surveillance footage, and interviewing witnesses. Evidence at the scene and testimony from neighbors helped shift the investigation from accidental fire to criminal arson. Could someone have intervened that night? Did any neighbor record or report the argument? In the days following the fatal fire that claimed the life of 29-year-old Keera Brabham, her family made their stance clear. Publicly, her mother Juliet and sister Stephanie voiced strong suspicions that Keera's death was no accident. According to them, this tragedy was a result of a calculated and personal act of violence. Juliet explained that Keera had recently ended a relationship with a man she described as possessive.
I think that he's jealous and controlling, and when she broke up with him, that he just couldn't handle it. He couldn't move on.
The family stated that the breakup occurred just weeks before Keera's death and that she had begun distancing herself from the individual due to controlling behavior. Her sister Stephanie confirmed that Keera had expressed concern about being watched and followed in the weeks leading up to the incident. Both women demanded that investigators look closely at the ex-boyfriend, Laren Lenworth Emile, asserting that he had motive and opportunity. They said the timing of the fire, just days after Christmas and shortly after the relationship had ended, was not coincidental. This case sent shockwaves through the Tamarack community. The Versailles Gardens apartment complex, where Keera had lived, was part of a quiet suburban neighborhood. Residents were unaccustomed to violent crime. The news of a young mother and businesswoman dying in a suspicious apartment fire disrupted the community's sense of normalcy. As the story gained traction, online support for Keera began to grow. The hashtag Justice for Keera was adopted by community members, friends, clients, and strangers. Vigils were organized, and GoFundMe pages were created to support Keera's daughter and to help cover funeral expenses. Public discourse began shifting toward broader conversations about domestic violence, particularly among successful women. Keera's professional image as a thriving esthetician conflicted with the private turmoil that investigators were beginning to uncover. Many began to ask, can someone be both empowered and endangered? This contradiction became central to the unfolding investigation. The Broward Sheriff's Office, BSO, officially opened a homicide and arson investigation immediately after firefighters reported the suspicious circumstances surrounding the blaze. The VIPR unit, Violence Intervention Proactive Enforcement Response, was assigned to the case due to the nature of the suspected foul play. Initial observations from the fire scene raised alarms. Forensic fire analysts found accelerant residue in several parts of the apartment, indicating the fire had likely been intentionally set. Investigators concluded the fire was not the result of a short circuit or appliance malfunction, but rather a deliberate act. The fire had spread too quickly and evenly for it to be accidental. The autopsy conducted by the Broward County Medical Examiner's Office confirmed the cause of death as complications from burns and possible smoke inhalation. The body showed no defensive wounds, blunt force trauma, or other immediate signs of physical attack, but the fire damage made full analysis difficult. There were no signs of forced entry into Keera's unit. The door showed no damage, and windows were intact, suggesting that whoever started the fire either had access to the apartment or had been let in voluntarily. Investigators considered the possibility that the perpetrator was someone Keera knew and trusted. Digital forensic experts began retrieving data from Keera's phone, cloud backups, and her social media platforms. Text messages, call log, and app activity were preserved as part of the evidence chain. Investigators began tracing digital interactions during the days and hours leading up to the incident. Despite the suspicious nature of the fire and the family's public appeals, weeks passed without an arrest. Many began questioning the pace of the investigation. Could better surveillance at the apartment complex have helped? Footage from security cameras in the parking lot and surrounding buildings was limited, making it difficult to establish a full timeline. Some critics argued that the building's lack of functional cameras in key areas allowed the suspect to move undetected. Why did it take nearly 2 months to arrest someone? Law enforcement officials stated that building a solid arson murder case required corroborating multiple layers of evidence: digital, physical, and circumstantial. While suspicions were strong early on, police said they needed irrefutable proof to avoid jeopardizing a future prosecution. On February 15, 2024, the Broward Sheriff's Office arrested 31-year-old Laren Lenworth Emile. He was charged with first-degree murder and first-degree arson in connection with Keera Brabham's death.
Also only on 6, a South Florida family says they are one step closer to getting justice.
Today, police arrested the ex-boyfriend of a 29-year-old who died after her Tamarack apartment was set on fire, and they charged him with her murder.
And NBC6's Kim Nguyen has more from the victim's sister, who says the family is breathing a huge sigh of relief. Kim?
Yeah, that's right. And right now, the suspect is being held here at Broward County Jail. The victim's sister says they suspected from day one that he was the one who killed her, and says that they are glad he's off the streets.
We got the justice that we deserved. We're grateful.
Stephanie Gladman says today she got the phone call she's been waiting for months.
We got a call this morning stating that he's been arrested.
The he she's referring to is 31-year-old Laren Emily, her sister's ex-boyfriend.
We never thought this man would take my sister's life, and he did.
Emily is charged with arson and premeditated murder for the death of 29-year-old Keera Brabham. Investigators say Brabham was killed in a fire that broke out in her apartment in Tamarack the day after Christmas. Gladman had just seen her sister hours before.
We were all at my mom's house Christmas Day.
Gladman said her sister had recently broken up with Emily and says she told them that his behavior had gotten scary.
He was becoming like a stalker. She told him, I need you to leave. When can you leave? Please move out. He finally moved out, but it looks like he kept a key, and that's how he was able to get in the apartment and attack her.
She says the family always suspected that he killed her and says the past few months before the arrest have been painful.
But it's just frustrating, knowing that my sister was 6 feet under and this guy is just out doing what he pleases.
Gladman describes her sister as fun and says she worked hard to provide for her 4-year-old son.
My sister would light up the room. Bubbly personality.
She sends this message to other women to always pay attention to red flags.
Any woman or any lady dealing with any situation to where a man is being abusive towards you, do not take it for a game. Do not take it lightly. Tell your family, tell your friends.
And Emily is being held here at the jail with no bond. For now, we're reporting live from Fort Lauderdale. Kim Nguyen, NBC 6 News.
His arrest followed nearly 2 months of evidence collection and forensic review. Multiple strands of evidence contributed to Emil's arrest. Investigators discovered a consistent stream of text messages from Emil to Keera in the weeks before the fire. Some messages were emotional, pleading, or apologetic. Others were accusatory and hostile. A final series of messages the night before the fire appeared to suggest he knew her location and movements. Eyewitness statements from residents mention a vehicle parked outside the complex in the early hours of December 26. The vehicle matched the description of a car registered to Emil. Although security footage from the building itself was limited, neighboring complexes had operational cameras. Surveillance video from a nearby apartment complex showed a vehicle consistent with Emil's make and model circling the area around 3 a.m., less than 30 minutes before the fire was reported. Cell site location data placed Emil's phone within close proximity to Keera's apartment between 2:50 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. GPS history from his mobile device supported this timeline, contradicting his initial claim that he was asleep at home. During a search of Emil's residence and vehicle, investigators found traces of a chemical accelerant similar to one used in the fire. Lab analysis confirmed a match between the accelerant found in the apartment and samples taken from Emil's clothing and car trunk. Emil was taken into custody without incident and held without bond pending trial. The charges filed against him reflect both premeditation and malice, according to court documents. Prosecutors are expected to pursue a maximum sentence. The arrest of Laren Emil marked a turning point in the case, but many questions remain. Keera Brabham's murder exposed uncomfortable truths about how control, obsession, and violence can exist behind polished appearances and private doors. This case has since prompted wider discussions on domestic abuse prevention, digital surveillance, and what warning signs people miss when relationships take a dark turn. As the legal process continues, Keera's family and supporters are still pushing for awareness and justice. Could stronger building security or community awareness have changed the outcome? What patterns of behavior were overlooked or dismissed as non-threatening? How do we ensure justice for victims like Keera without delay or doubt? As the investigation into Keera Brabham's death deepened, authorities began to piece together a disturbing behavioral pattern tied to her ex-boyfriend, Laren Lenworth Emil. Though he had no serious criminal record and no official reports of domestic violence on file, people close to Keera described a relationship marked by increasing control, jealousy, and obsessive behavior. Friends of Keera recounted that in the months leading up to her death, she often expressed feeling watched. On several occasions, she reportedly noticed vehicles resembling Emil's circling her residence or parked near places she frequented. One friend noted that Keera began changing her usual routines, including the time she left work or went shopping. These behaviors, though subtle at first, indicated a growing sense of unease. Despite these concerns, there were no police reports made about Emil. Keera never filed a restraining order or documented the alleged harassment. This lack of formal complaints made it more difficult for authorities to intervene before the fatal incident occurred. Investigators later acknowledged that her silence, like that of many stalking and domestic abuse victims, may have stemmed from fear of retaliation, emotional entanglement, or the belief that no one would take her seriously without concrete evidence. Emil's background showed no major red flags in public databases. He had no prior arrests for violent crimes, and there were no court-documented restraining orders involving any previous partners. However, those close to the couple stated that Emil had always displayed possessive tendencies, especially when Keera began distancing herself from the relationship. After the arson incident, digital forensic teams reviewed Emil's phone records, social media activity, and messaging history. What they found pointed to an escalating obsession. Investigators reportedly uncovered a series of unsent messages, deleted DMs, and search history entries that suggested Emil had been monitoring Keera's online presence. He frequently checked her business accounts, followed her tag photos, and used third-party viewing tools to track her activity on Instagram and Facebook. Some of these messages included emotional blackmail, threats disguised as concern, and repeated demands for communication. One draft message read, "If I can't talk to you, no one will." Another stated, "You think I'll just disappear, but you'll see what happens when you push people too far." These digital findings were not posted publicly until after Keera's death, making it difficult for friends or followers to recognize the danger brewing in the background. During the initial stages of the investigation, some online users criticized the lack of preventative action. However, experts on intimate partner violence explain that many victims hesitate to report abuse for fear of escalating the situation or not being believed. In cases like Keera's, where the abuser presents as non-threatening to outsiders and the relationship appears stable on the surface, warning signs are often misinterpreted or missed entirely. Should digital harassment and stalking be taken more seriously before it turns into physical harm? Are victims often hesitant to report abusive behavior out of fear of not being believed or fear of making things worse? How many other cases mirror this pattern but never make it to public awareness? On February 15th, 2024, after nearly 2 months of investigation, the Broward Sheriff's Office, BSO, arrested Laren Lenworth Emil. He was charged with first-degree murder and arson related to fire that killed Keera Brabham inside her Tamarack apartment on December 26, 2023. The arrest came after detectives built a comprehensive case linking Emil to the crime scene using digital evidence, physical surveillance footage, and cell tower data. Emil was taken into custody without incident and is currently being held without bond at the Broward County Main Jail. Prosecutors are building their case around the motive of rejection, the pre-planned nature of the arson, and the obsessive digital trail that Emil left behind. One of the major components of the prosecution's case is the text message and social media evidence collected from Emil's devices. These records reportedly include threatening messages, location data, and communications that place Emil in or near Keera's apartment complex on the morning of the fire. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station allegedly shows Emil purchasing a container of gasoline hours before the fire started. However, Emil's legal team has indicated that they will challenge the admissibility of the digital evidence, arguing that it was either obtained without proper warrants or lacks direct connection to the physical crime. The defense may also argue that there is insufficient physical evidence linking Emil to the act of arson itself, relying instead on circumstantial factors such as proximity and motive. As of now, a trial date has not been formally set, but pretrial hearings are underway. Legal analysts expect that this case could take several months to proceed to trial due to the volume of evidence and potential challenges surrounding forensic data collection and privacy concerns. In the meantime, Keera's family continues to be vocal advocates for justice, appearing in local news interviews and attending court proceedings. Her mother and sister have spoken publicly about the need for stronger laws protecting individuals from digital harassment and stalking. They also continue to raise awareness about the hidden forms of abuse that don't leave physical marks, but still destroy lives. Keera's daughter is currently under the care of family members. A GoFundMe campaign created in her honor continues to receive donations for her long-term welfare and future education. The case remains open, with new development expected as the trial date approaches. Prosecutors appear confident that the evidence will support conviction for both murder and arson, while the defense prepares for a complex battle over technicalities and digital rights. Should deleted or unset messages be used as legal evidence if they show violent intent? How can courts balance digital privacy with the need to prosecute dangerous individuals? Should laws be reformed to allow earlier intervention when signs of digital stalking are present? By early 2024, national awareness of Keera Brabham's death had significantly increased. As more details emerged surrounding the arson that claimed her life and the subsequent arrest of her ex-boyfriend, public discourse intensified both online and through mainstream media channels. News outlets including Local 10, NBC Miami, and CBS provided consistent coverage of the investigation, with timelines, police updates, and courtroom developments shared across platforms. True crime podcasts and YouTube creators also began exploring the circumstances of the case, focusing on potential signs of control and escalation that may have gone unnoticed prior to crime. Audiences were particularly drawn to the fact that Keera, a thriving beauty entrepreneur and single mother, had no known history of filing police complaints or restraining orders, yet was reportedly being stalked and harassed before her death. As the case gained traction, public reactions began to center around one pressing concern: how could someone like Keera, successful, independent, and seemingly in control, become a victim of fatal domestic violence? Conversations unfolded across TikTok, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram, where users traded insights and debated how to spot subtle indicators of coercion, control, and post-breakup stalking. The discussion gradually moved from general outrage to critical analysis of how society handles relationship-based threats, especially when victims don't come forward to law enforcement. Survivors of domestic violence joined these discussions, contributing first-hand experiences of how psychological abuse and post-breakup obsession often go unreported until it's too late. Their commentary emphasized that physical violence is not always the first sign. Emotional manipulation, isolation, surveillance, and excessive communication can all precede more overt danger. In the midst of rising attention, advocacy organizations such as Women in Distress and Domestic Violence Shelters in Florida call for expanded laws to address stalking and relationship-based coercion. These organizations highlighted that stalking laws in many jurisdictions, including Florida, require a high threshold of proof before action can be taken. Many call for the establishment of more immediate protective measures for individuals exiting controlling relationships, even if a formal police report hasn't been filed. In response to growing support, a GoFundMe campaign was launched to support Keera's young daughter and provide financial relief for funeral and legal expenses. The fundraiser received donations and shares from both local residents and national supporters. Many donors left public comments expressing concern over the circumstances of Keera's death and encouraging justice through continued investigation and prosecution. Keera's family, particularly her mother and sister, organized multiple memorial events following her death. These included a candlelight vigil held near the Versailles Gardens apartment complex, where she had lived and died, and a formal remembrance event hosted by close friends and family. Both gatherings drew significant attention on social media and news outlets. Footage from the events was later featured in news coverage and true crime commentary, further reinforcing the emotional and societal weight of the case. The coverage, advocacy, and online discourse raised larger questions that continue to echo in true crime forums and legal circles. What can we learn from Keera's case about hidden domestic violence? Many people assume that victims of intimate partner violence show outward signs or seek help. Keera's case challenged that assumption. Her professional success, quiet demeanor, and lack of visible conflict masked the possibility that she may have been navigating a toxic or controlling relationship behind closed doors. Experts highlighted that this pattern is more common than previously understood. Victims often feel shame, fear disbelief, or worry about retaliation, especially when the abuse is not physical. Is society doing enough to protect women who leave toxic partners? This question became central to the ongoing debate. Keera had ended her relationship with the alleged perpetrator, Laren Lenworth Emile, weeks before her death. Yet that act of separation, often the most dangerous phase in an abusive relationship, did not come with adequate protection. Advocates pointed out that restraining orders, legal filings, and criminal charges often come too late or are never pursued due to fear or lack of trust in the system. The conversation led to increasing pressure on legislators and policymakers to explore preventive frameworks that would offer quicker intervention based on behavioral risk patterns. This case also spurred broader conversations about stalking. Some commentators argued that stalking is still not taken seriously enough unless it escalates into physical violence. Others call for more public education campaigns on psychological abuse, manipulation, and control. There was a particular focus on how digital stalking, via texts, DMs, location tracking, and unauthorized surveillance, is often dismissed or underestimated by both victims and authorities. Keera's murder fits a disturbing pattern observed in many recent domestic violence cases. Independent, successful women being targeted by current or former partners. This emerging trend has drawn the attention of both legal experts and sociologists, who argue that shifts in gender roles, power dynamics, and economic independence have created new psychological tensions in certain types of relationships. Advocates now call for better education on psychological abuse and emotional manipulation, especially for young adults and first-time daters. While physical violence is easily recognized, the subtleties of control, such as gaslighting, obsession, forced isolation, and monitoring, often go unchecked. Domestic violence prevention programs are now being urged to include education on these psychological dimensions, not just physical signs. There is also a push for stronger post-breakup protections. Experts cite the need for systems that allow individuals to report concerns without immediately filing charges, allowing for preliminary investigation or monitoring when threats are made. Some suggest legal reform similar to Clare's Law, adopted in parts of the UK and Canada, which allows individuals to inquire about a partner's history of abuse. Keera's case has already been cited in workshops and seminars organized by anti-domestic violence groups in Florida. Advocates are using her story as a cautionary example of how easily a toxic relationship can turn deadly and how limited current tools are in preventing such escalations. Finally, there is an ongoing effort to provide long-term care for Keera's young daughter, who is now being raised by family members. Several supporters have requested that a portion of the awareness raised around this case be directed toward establishing a legal fund or trust that ensures her educational and emotional needs are met in the years to come. The death of Keera Brabham has left behind far more than a closed apartment and a pending trial. It has sparked legal debates, prompted media investigations, and intensified advocacy for those caught in silent cycles of abuse. How can systems be improved to identify threats before they escalate to fatal violence? Should laws change to allow protective action without a formal complaint? What signs do we often miss in people who seem strong, independent, and successful on the outside? If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.